Welcome to Vinyl Verdict. I'm Bell.
I'm Jamie.
And I'm Adam.
And this week it's Adam's pick. What are we listening to, Adam?
We're listening to Bjork, her third album.
Is that how you say it?
Homogenic. Yeah, it's technically Bjork. Her last name's like Grishmandotish.
I don't like the way you said that.
That's just like how you. I don't know how to say. I can't. I'm not Icelandic.
It sounded too wet when you said that.
It's like pretty. It's a pretty wet sounding word,
Yeah.
but not as wet as. No, we're gonna stop there. Homogenic is the third album from Icelandic art pop auteur Bjork. Released in 1997, the album was a pivotal moment in her career. After making a name as part of the indie rock band The Sugar Cubes, she would begin pursuing a solo experimental pop career and electronic music career. With her first two albums. After her first albums became quite big critical successes and hits on the backs of singles like Army of Me and It's Oh So Quiet, she was a bona fide pop star. She would tour and support those two eclectic albums extensively before returning to her home in London with a desire to have a cohesive, honed sound for her third album. Early sessions of this album. Should I keep going with the history, or Jamie, you have your hand up?
I have a question, sir.
Yeah.
Are we calling it her third album, even though her first album came out in 1977 when she was 11?
There is technically two albums previous to this because she has a jazz album,
Yeah.
and a as
like
well as some juvenilia. But this is on her website and reported by the band, reported by her label as her third album.
Mm-hmm.
Also, her first album is called Debut, so just ignore everything before that. Because also the other stuff wasn't released under just Bjork; it was released under her actual name, Bjork Skishman. So it's like a little bit.
She's like Cher or whatever, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Like we don't.
She's
So the first Cher
synonymous.
album it doesn't include like the Sonny and Cher stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, carry on, sir.
Early sessions of the album were cut short after her stalker Ricardo Lopez filmed a video where he admitted he made a letter bomb and mailed it to Bjork, and ended the video by ending his own life. The bomb was then located in the London Post sorting office. This spurred a frenzy of media attention and paparazzi. To resume recording her album, she would flee to Spain, where the rest of the album was finished. This would be the first album where she co-produces, and what resulted, it was an icy, cold, and dark album. Enlisting an Icelandic string octet, she planned to make an album that embodied the very nature of her home country. Quote, rough volcanoes with soft moss growing over it. She merged organic string instrumentation and electronic percussion and synths to match the dichotomy of old and new that she witnessed in her country. With its mixture of classical, electronic, and trip-hop, the album was unlike anything people had heard, and it was critically lauded and represents a landmark album of the 90s and the trip-hop scene. This established Bjork as an artistic force and set the stage for future triumphs like the follow-up Vespertine and 2015's Volnicura. And it's a good freaking album, if I do say so myself. I've been a fan of Bjork for a long time now. I think she is
You've been
an
Bjorking
absolute.
it for a while? You've been Bjorking it for a while?
Yeah, I would say I've been Bjorking it since the 2012.
Wow.
That's when I first started Bjorking it. Yeah, I think this is a really great and really fascinating album, and there's just like really nothing quite like it.
I will say it is fascinating that it is an album that was allowed to be made. This sounded more critical, but it's just like one of the, like, it is sometimes extremely chaotic sounding. There's a lot of like disparate sounds on some of them, like strings that are fighting a beats that are fighting strings. There's some wailing on a number of them.
Mm-hmm. Sure, there's wailing.
I just think it's interesting that this is an album that exists. Also, that it is so critically lauded. I'm not going to fault the fact that it's critically lauded, but I think Rolling Stone has it at the number 202 on the 500 list right now, which I think is interesting.
Rate Your Music, it is I think it's in the top 50 on Rate Your Music.
It's top 100 for Apple Music's best albums list.
Crazy, eh?
Yeah, it's a very, very good album.
It's something.
So Jamie, I take you didn't like it.
I don't know if I didn't like it.
Are you just trying to hedge your bets? Because I've been staring at you very intently.
No, it's there are parts of the album that I was with, and then there are other parts of the album I was like, not for me.
So what didn't work for you? Like what worked and what didn't work?
Some of the weird discordant sounds I found kind of off-putting. Like the songs that are listed as singles on this album, I quite enjoyed. I thought they were the most listenable, and I think that's why they were picked as singles. Like almost certainly. But there's some stuff that like some really grating like industrial sounds. The one song that just has like 2 choruses of like just wailing sounds. And then there's the one song that just ends with beep boop beep boop beep boop beep boop beep boop beep boop. I'm not into that.
Just ends with a beep boop beep boop beep boop.
Well, I mean like every other line is beep boop beep boop beep boop. I wasn't there for that. But like I think I understand why it's a critical darling. I think. Belle, what'd you think?
I never listened to Bjork before. I had no Bjork before. I didn't have any idea what I was getting into. Like legit,
No,
could have been a country album. I had no idea. The only thing I'd ever heard or seen of Bjork was that video of her attacking that journalist, which is probably not how she wants to be remembered, but that's a crazy video.
I remember
that
her
also
swan
happened
dress.
before this. Like that happened around this time when she was working on this album.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she said that reporter had been like harassing her and her son for a long time, but in the video it's just like, welcome to Bangkok, and then she gets attacked. Like out of context, it looks like she's gone crazy, but you know, it is what it is. It's crazy listening to this album and hearing how many artists she has inspired.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm listening to this, I'm like, oh, this sounds like Aurora. There's tones of Woodkid. You know, there's Sigur Rós. There's like a bunch of people. Where I'm like,
There's
wow, this sounds like
sounds of Radiohead.
Yeah, it's like, wow, this sounds like it has inspired many people.
Apparently, it inspired 808s and Heartbreaks.
Yeah.
Sure.
I apparently Kanye West gave an interview and he's like, I've been really listening to a lot of Bjork lately. That's not how he sounds.
He's been
really.
Bjorking it. I don't know how I felt about this album.
See?
Yeah. There are things that I like. There are things that feel of the time. There are things that I like,
What
but
time?
don't like big chunks of it. It feels very Fruitiger Arrow. Feels very Charlie's Angels. Feels very late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to figure out what time you like. What like some weird Icelandic future or
No, it feels like 97 or like 2001. It feels very like we're imagining the future while playing on our Game Boys. It feels iMac G3 Cube. You know, it feels like
sure.
Windows Vista background. I can keep going on, but it feels very.
Well,
it feels good.
It's funny because some of the things you described are like late 2000s.
Sure.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying though. It feels of an era that is long gone.
Yeah. And I don't know if it goes. Sometimes I feel like I wish it went more into things, and sometimes I'm like, stop going farther.
Please stop.
There are things that are hard to listen to because it's a very sharp sound.
Yes.
But I think overall I did enjoy the idea of this. But I don't know if I want to listen to this.
Interesting. That's an interesting way of putting it. This album lost out for album of the year to Radiohead at the 40th Grammys.
What album?
Kid
the
A?
Benz? No, Kid A was 2001. That would have been either OK. 97 would have been OK Computer.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's I think that's fair.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so she was the runner-up in that category. I find it interesting. And then reading Tom York's take on this album, he said that they pivoted the sound of their next album to sound more like
a lot of people
album.
wanted to sound more like Bjork.
Yeah,
Like,
very interesting.
Whoa, what a good year for music 97 was.
97
Yeah,
was
buddy.
a crazy
We got The
year.
Mollusk, The Lonesome Crowded West by Ween and Modest Mouse, respectively. Foo Fighters, Blur, Daft Punk put out Homework. It's like, man, there's Nimrod.
Chemical
We got
Brothers, Dig Your Own Hole.
Prodigy, The Fat of the Land, the one with the crab on the front. I don't never listen to it, but I like the album cover.
I own it somewhere.
Yeah,
Great.
it was a big year for music.
Third Eye Blind. Wow.
How it's gonna be.
Bittersweet Symphony came out that year.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they made no money on that track until like 2021.
Good. Sleater Kinney?
Yep.
That's crazy. Sleater
Yeah.
Kinney is half of half of a
Well,
third of Sleater Kinney
Sleater-Kinney
is half of
Portlandia.
Portlandia.
Yeah, Carrie Brownstein.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Chemical Brothers, "Dig Your Own Hole" is on that one. Great album.
It was a big year, and I also think that kind of is why this was such a success. Like, what allowed this album to be so successful was that it was like a big year of really landmark artsy kind of albums, right? Like OK Computer, landmark art rock album, and this was a big time for art pop as well. And Bjork was kind of at the forefront. So, despite you guys sounding like you don't want to listen to it again, I think we're gonna have to give it one last listen.
Up to the state of emergency. How beautiful to the state of our life. In a ball of yarn, you'll never return. Now you come back.
Hunter.
My poor ears.
Man, I love the intensity on this song. It feels so tense, and I gotta say, I believe her when she says she's the hunter. It has like a war song like beat to it that reminds me of a more electronic version of Woodkid, who I mentioned earlier, and who we covered in season 1. I really liked
That was
this.
season 1?
Yeah.
My God.
Time flies.
Yeah, this is, I think, an incredible opening track. Immediately with these like ethereal, harsh synths and that like very fast break beat that's happening in the background before these vocals swell in. And you're just like, oh yes, the incredible voice of Bjork comes in, and it sounds like she's kind of pissed. Which is like kind of a theme on this album. I think lyrically it's a lot darker. She had just gone through, as we said, like there was her stalker tried to kill her. There was she had recently gone through a breakup with a couple of romantic partners. She had become a mother recently. She had to deal with the paparazzi constantly. She was in a place where a lot of her lyrics ended up being a little bit more dark.
Yeah.
And the hunter has this tense drama to it with the like building strings from the string octet. And it's like, it doesn't really have, because of this like backing rhythm, there's no like place to really settle into. There's no relaxing. You don't like settle because the groove is so like frenetic.
Apparently the songs were written and recorded and then the strings were added later for all of them.
Sure.
Which I think is interesting. Like someone wrote the string parts after she had already written the
Bjork
melody.
wrote the string parts for this album.
Yeah, she like sang
and
the strings.
Yeah, she had another person helping her too. Yeah.
Yeah, I like how this is a common thing, is that Bjork does not always sing words. After she says she's acting Scandinavian, the lyrics are just put down as gibberish or ... on Apple Music, because she's just vocalizing. But like things that sound like words. And apparently when she performs live, sometimes it's Icelandic, sometimes it's gibberish. She just leaves some space for improv, which is kind of neat. But I think it's a really good start to the album. It's really, really cool. Really enjoyed it.
Some of the themes in the song I think a lot of it is like the idea that she's out there trying to make music because like she's trying to make music to support things, I guess is like she's the person bringing in all the money, I guess is like the point she's trying to make. Yeah. She's
like kind of a breadwinner. Also the accordion comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
A texture that I just didn't expect.
There's accordion on several tracks, and it's always like jump scare accordion.
Whoa, when did you get it here?
Oh, well.
Weird Al's just like behind you. You're like, oh.
Running for your life from Weird Al.
And I love how like the way the song kind of keeps it in this one mode, but then it allows it for that like how Scandinavian of me to like really swell vocally and leave space, and the way then they fade out the drums or fading it back in to play with those textures.
Yeah.
She's
got a thing about pronouncing words funny.
Yeah, she does that.
I mean, also, it's not her first language. She has an accent.
No, she's doing it purposefully on a couple of the tracks.
Oh, she definitely like has a kind of a singing style where she'll say things weird.
Yeah, she added an extra syllable to a word in one of the songs later on the album, and it fits the song because it's kind of wild, but like It's just like one of those like really weird ways of pronouncing a word kind of thing. We'll talk about it later, but then we get into yoga or yoga.
I believe it's a yoga, but I don't quote me.
Yeah, okay.
It's
Yoga,
named
Adam
after her
2024.
friend. It's named after her best friend.
Oh.
Song.
The string intro on this one's beautiful. It's such a cinematic sounding song. It's such a long, slow build. There's powerful choruses and the breakdown on 2:30. It works together really, really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is like one of her best songs. It is absolutely beautiful.
It's got this thing though where the synths or like keyboards or whatever and the strings, like the synths are under the strings in the mix, and they don't really play very well off of each other. Like they're not playing complementarily; they're kind of playing opposingly. I don't know if I liked it or didn't like it. It just exists. So, but then it goes into like maybe around 2:30 has these like little industrial sounds.
It's like
I guess is the way I
a
would describe it.
proto dubstep song.
I can kind of get behind that.
I understand.
like-
Yeah, well, I mean, dubstep used to sound very different from
Yeah,
what we
like
would call it
you'll
now.
hear like kind of similar bass motifs, especially in, like the drop section of this song in like early dubstep, like 2005, 2006.
Yeah,
kind of
like
stuff.
2:30 when Jeremy's saying is like where it really starts to get to you, like you said, the drops. And yeah, totally. I never put that together.
Yeah,
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, and this is why we're the number one music podcast on the internet, because we come up with these things.
I just love this song. The way there's almost that kind. There's like the dubstep almost beat, that like half step like delay. The incredible string line, that descending string line during the chorus, and it all kind of working together to make this insanely beautiful but also complex sound. It's just a stunning track. And her voice, she is such an emotive singer. Like you can really feel the emotion in her voice when she sings, and she will like deliver emotion to the point where she like it goes beyond the idea of like singing with important technique, or like later in the album when she like really growls some of the words. It's so cool. Absolutely masterful track. Continuing the hot streak at the start of the album, we go to the next track, Unravel.
Tom York calls this his favorite song ever. In fact, he covered it. Tom York is, of course, the lead singer of Radiohead.
Of course. Yeah, it's not bad. It's a slow burn with the strings, long piano notes, and plenty of reverb and harmonizing. It feels very emotional, but it didn't really hit for me. I could see coming back to this if I want to get in my feels, but this time it didn't get me in my feels, and therefore I didn't really relate to it.
Yeah, I think this is just a beautiful, beautiful ballad. I agree with Tom York in that it is one of the most beautiful songs, like I think that I've ever heard.
Wow.
The way the vocals, the textures, the space in the synths, the weird like flittering, like almost ethereal synth lines that you could descend. It all builds to this like such an incredible and emotional experience.
I
And-
cannot relate to that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Bell on that one.
It's so good. I think the song's incredible.
I like that you like it.
Yeah. Maybe it's just like this album is so cinematic that I can't relate in that way. Like it
Fair.
feels like this could be in a movie of a
That-
character running through a forest being emotional by themselves.
This
and like
is very
that's beautiful, but
very similar to my reaction to Woodkid. It was so cinematic sounding that I was like, I'm not sure what the time and place is for that one. Yeah.
I can't relate because it's very movie like. And yeah, it's very good, but like I can't get that much enjoyment to it if I can't either see myself listening to it or connect to it in any way. Yeah, it's almost like too well produced, I guess. I don't know.
It's cold. This whole album is like produced in a way that I think really is emblematic of the feeling of Iceland. It's cold. It's jagged.
Yeah.
But to find that like beauty with this like organ that comes in the outro, the layering of her vocals, of this yearning that she has, from her emotional like vocals, it's such a stunning track. I absolutely adore it, and many people have spilled a lot of ink writing about the songs.
Christ, Pitchfork gave this a 9.9.
And then I think they re-reviewed it. In their retrospective, they gave it a 10.
Yeah, they were just like, oh, our 0.1 we were wrong. It is the most perfect. And I was like,
I don't know
that's
about that
very
shit.
up your own ass. Thank you, Pitchfork.
And then we get Bachelorette, which when I copied my track listings to make notes from Amazon because it's just like the easiest layout. They have it misspelled as Beachelorette. And I was like, whoa, a beach song.
Beachler.
I'm like really excited to hear a beachy song. And I found out, no, it is Bachelorette.
It's apparently a different version on Spotify. This is like the Bachelorette, the Family of Tree
Family Tree
edition.
version. That's just I don't think it's actually substantially different. I believe that's
No.
just on her. It's just her greatest album was
Oh,
her greatest hits album was called Family Tree.
This reminds me of a James Bond song.
I
I've
could agree
never
with that.
watched James Bond, but it gives me James
understand
Bond.
how there's 21 films or maybe 22 now. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's too many to start now.
Yeah.
I've never seen James Bond. It puts out the vibe. And maybe it's the swells and the strings. It feels, again, extremely cinematic. It's very cool. It's a little intense for me to want to sit and listen to it, but it is very cool.
Word.
James Bond. Pew pew. International Super
It's
Spy.
the big like boom 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 boom, the bombastic like deep piano notes, the dramatic strings. This song's so cool.
Apparently, this is the third song in a trilogy where I haven't heard the first two songs.
Yeah, so there's like a recurring character in her lyrics.
Isabel.
And there's a one song on the first album and the second album, and then there's this song, and she kind of, when she had created part of the song, she felt like, oh, I have an idea to keep this story of this character going.
Mm-hmm.
But she also enlisted a Icelandic poet
Yeah, her buddy.
to write the lyrics for this,
Word.
because she's like, I don't know how to. She's like, I can't figure out lyrics that are going to sound epic enough for this track, and they are pretty epic. The opening line of "I'm a fountain of blood in the shape of a girl" is a great line. The lyrics on this song.
She's
are
a
so
liquid engineer.
cool. She's a liquid engineer.
Shout out to last week's episode.
This song's so cool. I agree. It gives a spy movie vibe.
Yeah, I did write that down as
It's
well.
digital, dramatic.
Yeah, it's a
And then go
very
ahead,
dramatic strings paired with a beat. Very dramatic strings.
And then the way she just pops off in the back half of the track with her soaring vocal line is so stunning. Bjork is such an incredible vocalist. The way she uses her voice, and also the weird, her choices of like vocal lines and melody is so unique. And her inflections, and this song just has all of that in a nice, beautiful package. I think this is one of the most immediately gripping tracks on the album. It's definitely one that grabs you immediately rather than grows like some of the other tracks where you're like, it took me a while of listening to this album before I really was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I get this now.
There's going to be a song that comes on this album you're not going to say is the most beautiful song you've ever heard.
I didn't say this was the most beautiful
So
song
far,
I've
you're
ever
like, God, these songs are perfect. There's got to be one that's
The
not perfect.
first 4 tracks on this album are a incredible, incredible run of tracks.
Well, what do you think about All Neon Like?
All Neon Like is the first dip in quality this album sees.
9.9 out of 10.
Yeah, that's the point one.
Oh, we found it.
Yeah, this feels a little similar to the last song, but I didn't like this one as much. It's just a little less interesting. Doesn't feel like it flows quite as well. I like the little buzzing synths. It's a cool sound, but they're very demanding. It takes a lot of attention away from anything else going on in the song, which is too bad.
The weird ethereal noises on this one are apparently a glass harmonica, which is an instrument I did not know existed until now.
Is that where you like run your finger along the tip of a glass? And
Yeah, it's exactly
it
that.
woos?
Yeah, 100%.
Why is it called a harmonica?
I don't know.
Because
Because I think you blow through it, right?
I thought you just
Like a
you
jug.
It's different. It's different.
You
No,
like a-
it's an actual thing. It kind of looks like
Like a harmonica?
it looks sort of like a bunch of champagne glasses like layered together, and you kind of blow through it.
Huh.
That is my
Oh,
understanding.
apparently it's like, oh wow, it's like a cranked thing. You like push it with your foot like a sewing machine, and
Yeah.
that spins it, and then
Isn't
you
that
run your
wild?
fingers on it. That is wild.
Anyway, Buddy, whose name escapes me, plays it. on
Benjamin
this-
Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin
It's
plays
literally just glasses on their sides on a spinner so you can run your finger over it. That's so funny.
it. Isn't that wild?
So someone did the finger thing, was like, oh, I can automate this. That's the most fragile instrument.
Yeah,
You
the
bump
cost
it
of
once and
shipping
every
that.
glass shatters.
That's really all I got out of the song.
It was invented by Benjamin Franklin.
Really?
Yeah.
What the hell?
That dude must have been awful at dinner parties. He'd be
It
like,
was
"Watch
invented
this."
in 1761.
Benjamin Franklin.
Ben Franklin.
The big BF, Benji Frankie. That's crazy.
So this is dipping quality. Why do you think so, Adam?
For me, I find that the glass harmonicas, I don't love the tone of it. And I think this song stays on its one jam for a little too long. I think the beat's kind of cool, but the way the synths don't quite fall in line with the like do 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 do.
No, it's very discordant. Yeah.
It's this atmosphere, and I feel like I wanted something a little bit more to pull the soaring vocal line and the atmospheric glass harmonica together with the beat. Like as Jamie mentioned earlier, when about sometimes they don't always gel.
No, yeah, it's. I won't call it off-putting. I will call it. It's kind of. It makes it hard to listen to sometimes because it
Yeah, it's
makes
a
it
little
hard to
off-putting.
focus on something. Her lyrics are good, occasionally very interesting, but sometimes like the music in the background is very. It becomes distracting, I guess.
Yeah. I get where you're coming from, and I think this is like the one where it just doesn't quite connect for me.
But then we get a cover of Ziggy
David
Stardust.
Bowie's
Yeah.
5 years.
5 years.
It is not, and it's got this weird scratchy beat in the background.
Yeah, I think that the drum programming is so cool. It sounds like, I don't know, like almost like 8-bit drum noises.
Yeah, the little like chip tune too. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah.
At first, I was not impressed with the song. Like I was like, okay, this is weird. But then Bjork goes wild at 2 minutes, and you start to finally feel the emotion she's trying to portray with her singing, but how she wants this person to show their true intentions. Calls them out for being a coward, not being honest and brave. And I wish that the rawness came with deeper lyrics, or it was paired with a more intense instrumental. But it's not, which is fine. Like I think the rawness still works, but I think it would have been cool to have a big switch up in the instrumentation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when she goes off, she's like just growling, like, "I'm so bored of cowards that say what they want, but you can't handle love." For me, the start of the song is almost like it's like an exercise in just building tension so that it can relieve there. Like I almost find that the first part of the song, I'm like, I don't even really want to listen to it. But then when the whole thing drops out and that string line comes in, it's like every part of that song was worth that ride.
Yeah, it's around like 2 minutes 55 seconds.
Yeah,
or whatever,
she gets so mad, the emotion builds in her vocal, and then the drums drop out. There's a sereneness before her anger like returns,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of the synths come again with the strings added on top as she's like kind of wailing in anger of being like just begging somebody to actually like open up to her, to like be able to treat her like you take a serious long-term relationship with the importance that she deems that is needed.
I wish it just wasn't like dun, 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 just the whole time. Like that rawness happens. There's these little dropouts, but it immediately goes back to that same driving synth line. And even when she's ramping up that rawness in the 30 seconds prior to what you're just talking about, it's that same basic synth. It's like drop to nothing. Bring in a drum. Bring in something to like ramp up with it instead of just being this little indie beat that somebody would make by accident and make a song out of it. It's just like so boring.
Fruity Loops.
Yeah. I love that rawness. It's wasted though. It's like, man, do something. It's like poking something. Do something.
Yeah. I think it's nice. It works for me once the strings come back in. The strings are kind of like constantly wailing and playing at the top at the end. But I agree that it is very repetitive and drone like, and if you're not vibing with that drone, then this song's just going to be a miss, except for that middle part where you're like, whoa.
Yeah, it's like,
Holy
whoa,
crap.
that feels good. Oh.
It's like they sounded like a minute of incredible stuff with stuff I don't really like.
Yeah, with 3.5 minutes of nothing. It's like, okay.
But then we move on to Immature.
Yeah, this one's like a follow-up to 5 years. Lyrically, they kind of flow together. There is a crossfade. I think they should have just called it like 5 years Immature, have it be a 7-minute epic.
Yeah.
Have like a beat switch halfway through, like Nights by Frank Ocean. obviously when you're listening to it on CD or whatever, or on vinyl, you're listening to it back to back. Being two separate tracks doesn't really matter. But I think maybe it would have allowed for some interesting crossover on some of these ideas and tones that would have lifted 5 years. Because I think Immature is better than 5 years.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm entirely enamored with the loop sample that's at the or just a looped part at the beginning. I don't know if I'm entirely enamored with it. I did like the message of the song that she was like, "Oh man, how could I played myself thinking that somebody else would fix me or whatever, or yeah." Very it's a interesting introspective look, I guess.
Yeah, I think the beat here is really cool. It's a really cool trip hop beat. And it's a characteristic of like Bjork's kind of interesting and unique songwriting for her like melodies and stuff, because it kind of floats above this like kind of like more laid back groove, but she's kind of like this kite that's flying above it, not really touching it, as she like different winds are blowing her away. And it's cool, especially when it comes in at 140. And the beat really comes together. It isn't the most eventful song. But yeah, when she goes just really gives it. Oh, she's such an incredible vocalist.
Yeah, I don't think either of the last two songs are ones I'd go back to. I don't know if I would skip either. I guess if I might, it would be 5 years, but yeah, I think both these get close. Just not quite there for me. And then we get Alarm Call. Awesome intro. It's crazy how this style of like sampling is so popular again. This song feels really modern because of it. Other than the intro, this is one
interesting thought. Yeah.
Other than the intro, I feel like this is one I put down feels a little of the time in a good way. This makes me want to drive a convertible and listen to this song, because I feel like convertibles are very early 2000s for some reason. Like if Cameron Diaz from Charlie's Angels was in the car next to me, top down, this would be a great song. It's very simple, it's warm, it's floaty in an enjoyable way.
It's the Volkswagen New Beetle of music.
Okay.
Yeah, this is like a straight up trip hop track.
This might be the most bizarre pronunciation of Buddhist I've ever heard.
No, Buddhist.
I think she it says Buddhist or something, isn't it?
She says, "I'm no Buddhist."
Yeah, it was weird.
That's probably her accent.
Yeah, it's mostly it seems to be a song about music having the power to change things. I think.
Sure.
I think that was the message I got out of it.
Yeah.
It didn't make me want to ride around in a convertible.
Honestly, I'm not that, like, I've listened to this album quite a bit. I'm not that familiar with the lyrics because I mostly can't understand them.
Do you want to be on a mountaintop with a radio and good batteries?
Yeah, that's
that was a
very
good
interesting
batteries
detail.
if I'm on the mountain. That's
Good
for
batteries is so funny.
Yeah, it's a very interesting detail. Yeah.
There's like
And play a
video
joyous tune. And free the human race. It's like, what?
Heck yeah.
It's just yapping.
There's like a video of her talking about like a CRT television that has like a bunch of views on YouTube and people are like weirdly obsessed with. This kind of reminds me of it because she's like a big dork. She's a big nerd. Big dorky nerd person. Yeah, I think this song's a nice break from the heavier tones of the last 3 tracks.
Hot psych. Track 9.
That is true, but track 9 also bops.
Oh, I don't know about that one. We'll get into that in a minute. Here's Pluto.
Yeah.
An aggressive techno track.
Got some glitchy sounds. Got some wailing.
Yeah, the lyrics on this one, like the actual singing, is very crunchy. I'm not sure I love it, but it's interesting. I like the swell at 145 where she starts to just wail for a while. It's very intense. It's not necessarily fun to listen to, but it does trigger some emotion.
I liked where you were going. I wasn't with you in the first half, but you had me in the second half. I agree. It does trigger an emotion. I'm not sure what it is, but it's
called fight or flight, which is again where it's like, when would I listen to this? Like, I don't want to add stress to my life just because.
I love the sheer intensity of this. This song's so cool.
It makes me feel very uneasy.
Yeah, no, right? It's awesome. It's so
scary.
Dark. It's so aggressive, but it's also got this like German underground techno like pulse that is like almost danceable. And then the way it just explodes into this emotional like wail at
I
the
think
end.
this song was played at Boiler Room Vancouver.
It would have fit it right in a Boiler Room Vancouver, especially that
The
last
night
artist he
too,
played.
yeah. That's crazy.
But I think this song's so cool and such a great burst of energy to bring it on home for the last couple tracks on the album. It's one of my faves on the album.
That's crazy.
I don't think it's that crazy.
It's
I'm
so hard
surprised
to
'cause to me it
choose.
feels like it's so like I get it's so techno. It's so straight ahead like industrial that it doesn't it's
The
like the
screaming
least
is
it's like not that experimental to me.
Nuts. It's so loud, the screaming, the wailing, sorry. It's also hard to choose 3 songs to choose for the last listen because, like, obviously, you want everyone to kind of have some of the context of what we're listening to. I'll make this the third one. You'll hear the yelling. It's just really, it's cool, but the yelling is too much and too long.
Cool is an interesting way of putting it.
I think the industrialness of it is cool. I agree with Adam. I can see myself jamming to this, but it's like just a lot of yelling. And it's so crunchy. It's hard to listen to.
Yes.
I love it. I'm sorry that you don't, Jamie. I wish you could love everything always.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Because you know what? I would love it if all was full of love.
Yeah.
The last
even
song.
The last one. It's very ethereal and there's no beat at all.
Interesting follow up to Pluto to go from something so intense to something so serene.
Yeah.
I think it's a good follow though.
I like this one.
Lots of light synths, a subtle hum, quiet strings, and panning background vocals that swirl around you as Bjork sings directly at you.
Not a single beat.
There's still some sharp notes from whatever the like feedback is added at 2:45 that I did not enjoy, but otherwise I felt like this was pretty enjoyable.
The only miss is that there's a single version of this song, and it is better.
Oh.
It is just a better version of the song, and it's a shame that they would changed it for the album. And yes, it is a very loud, sharp synth that comes in there. You're like, whoa! You're like, whoa!
It's like, you like this right now? I'm like, whoa! Stop.
And it's like it could be really beautiful. There's just like some very high pitched frequencies that are a little too much. That they could have just like kind of filtered out, and you could have still had the same ethereal effect. But I think it's a kind of a beautiful ethereal, almost like abduction. It feels like you're ascending, or it's the you're being accepted. You're going off of the world. You're at this serene place. The emotional burdens that you've gone through, in this cold album are like disappearing as you ascend to the next plane of existence, or something like that. It's such a cool and beautiful way to end the album.
The single version doesn't have that squeal, so I already prefer it as well. I'm always not going to listen to the whole thing right now, but I do prefer it already.
Yeah, I wished it was the single version.
Well, why don't you tell us about the record itself?
The record itself. Well, we can talk about.
Amazing album art.
Yeah, the album art is crazy. Also, it's a picture. It's a photograph. It's
Yeah.
not a render. I thought
No.
it was a render for the longest time.
I don't think they could do that high quality of a render in 97, could they? Like, it's very detailed.
Yeah. The cover is photographed by Nick Knight, and the costume was designed by the iconic Alexander McQueen. Bjork's-
Iconic.
He is. He's absolutely super
Is it related to
influential.
Steve? Steve McQueen?
Which one?
2.
Oh, wait, Steve
they're-
McQueen, the director, right? I
Yeah.
forgot about that. Yeah.
Alexander McQueen actually recently got a biopic made about him. He was a very influential fashion designer.
Is he
who,
gone?
hmm?
Has he passed?
He committed suicide
Oh.
at age 42, which is pretty heartbreaking because of how significant his contributions to the fashion world were. She's wearing a silver satin robe that is reminiscent of a kimono. It is with this floral pattern of these blue kind of, I don't
Got
know
crazy
what kind of flowers
hair.
are, but beautiful blue flowers.
Star Wars hair.
That motif is also on the background. Her hair apparently weighed 10 kilograms.
Christ.
She has this crazy like double bun hairpiece, but imagine if the buns were 3 times, each bun was twice the size of her head.
She's got the African neck.
She has
I don't know what you even
African
call that.
neck rings.
Rings, yes.
And then crazy long silver nails. She has like almost like that French lipstick.
Yeah, it's like a heart.
Yeah, that's like it makes your lips look very tiny, and then she's wearing these contacts that make her pupils absolutely huge, but there's also like extra black dots in the sclera part of her eye.
It's very cool.
It's a very striking image, and it is lovingly printed on this album, and it's got a little bit of a metallic sheen to it on the cover.
Oh yeah.
So they use a nice thing on the back.
Well, this is bonkers.
It's,
The back.
so I don't even understand what it is. It is like a bunch of it's red. There is like a plant that is blooming. There's a crystal at some point with another flower blooming out of it. It's surrounded by these pods that are in the backdrop, and then I don't know what this logo is in the middle.
Yeah, it looks like it's projected onto a stage, but there's no stage. Like, it's very odd.
Yeah.
Fonts are good though.
Yeah, the font is good, and then they ruin it by putting the UPC code so far into the middle.
Very CD like. Oh
Yeah.
God, that's awful.
I know they couldn't have put it just a
Yeah,
little
they have
bit
like
further.
an inch and a half of space to move it to the left and down, and yet they choose not
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Fun. This album, you slide it out the top.
It's one of those ones. Where's the label? Is it on the
The
bottom
label is
half?
the correct way around. It is
Oh,
not
okay,
like
that's
nice.
it's
Okay.
not like
Synchronicity, where it was all over the place.
or well, you just got me flood by They Might Be Giants. And
Oh,
it's in a
always-
gatefold, but it pulls out vertically. But the gatefold is the opposite way. It's 90 degrees from where you pull it out.
Have you listened to that, by the way?
I have.
Oh, it's so good.
And I love that album. Inside, you have a silver album sleeve that says Bjork.
So of the time. I love this.
Yeah. It says Homogenic. It has credits on one side, a thank you note. She has a handwritten thank you note to
You.
her best friends, Yoga and Sindri and Mr. Bernstein, the people that she says closest to the heart.
Is it Bernstein or Bernstein?
Bernstein. As well as the credits on the backside, you have. Sorry, I bumped the mic. On the backside, you have the lyrics to each song. I think. No, this is all good. There's nothing too special about them, and then the record itself is black, and it's basically just a gray on either side. It says Homogenic, and then the other side has a track listing on what songs are on which side. The pressing itself is quite good. It sounds. Come on, it's static. Get in there. Well, I broke it. Just kidding. The pressing itself sounds quite good. You can still hear the deep bass notes. The strings are loud and clear. I do find that it actually does make those harsh notes in like All Is Full of Love quite a bit softer than on the digital recording of it, which I think benefits the track. Yes. I don't remember. Shay got this for me as a gift, so I don't know how much it is.
I can look it up. Hold on. I just had
But-
Amazon open.
But
It's a great album, and I'm happy to have it in my collection.
well, the price will not affect my final verdict, so I'll go first. Bjork has inspired and influenced a lot of musicians that I really enjoy, but I'm not sure I like this source material as much. I think there's some really cool ideas in here that make it an interesting experience, but it isn't something that'd be like, hell yeah, I want to listen to Homogenic right now, you know? This is allegedly a top 100 album of all time, and I can see in some ways how it could be a top 100 if it's by influence, but if it's by actually enjoying the album when you sit down to listen to it, I'm not as convinced. I'm putting Homogenic by Bjork in the 17th spot under The City Under the City by L'Orange and above Time Out by the Dave Brubeck Quartet. This album is probably worth a listen if you are a fan of Radiohead, Aurora, or Sigur Rós, or Woodkid, but otherwise I would not say it's a must listen. Jamie?
I put it in the 25th spot,
Jesus.
below Tyler the Creator's Wolf and just above Danny Brown's Atrocity Exposition.
Man needs new ears.
I didn't hate it. I didn't fully enjoy it, but like Belle was saying, I can appreciate that it exists. But I also looked it up, and it is currently $61
Woo!
for the version you have.
Nice.
There is also a double LP version. I don't know what's different about it.
Probably double, like 2 albums, 2 records.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what is crazy, Bill?
That's crazy. This is a landmark record that I think is essential listening for anybody who wants to understand the modern landscape of electronic music and art pop. Beyond the idea of just sheer enjoyment, it's almost like it's just such an influential album that I think it has to be touched upon. I think that the first 4 tracks on this album are absolutely incredible. And then the last couple of tracks also slap too, with a little bit of a dip in quality in the middle. I also understand how this album feels a little bit of the time. It's not exactly timeless, but I think that that's also one of the things that makes it so interesting. It's not my favorite Bjork album. That would probably go to Valnicura or Vespertine, but it is a stunning and incredible work of art that is complex, interesting, and quite unlike anything else that I have ever heard.
Amen.
I'm going to put it in my 8th spot, behind Charlie XCX Brat and above Dave Brubeck's Time Out.
Cool.
Well, next week, we're talking about our favorite greatest hits that we own. And I am choosing Blink-182's greatest hits. Adam, what are you choosing?
Well, I only own one greatest hits album, and I bought it because the name of the guy made me laugh. It is 20 Great Hits by Engelbert Humperdinck.
Wow. And Jamie, what'd you pick?
I picked Patsy Cline's greatest hits. I own a lot of greatest hits albums, but to narrow it down to one, I picked that one.
Yeah, I have a few as well. We'll talk about what the other ones we owned are next week. But it sounds like this is I've never listened to either of those two people. I mean, that's probably not surprising. But I'm assuming we're gonna have very different albums, so that'll be interesting.
What a surprise! Yeah, I'll put that in the album notes or the episode notes again. The picks could not be more different. That's usually what I say.
Well, hey, for our aftercare question, we're a little, by the time this episode comes out, it's been a couple of weeks, but for us, we just got our Spotify and Apple Music Wrapped.
Yeah.
So when we talk about what was kind of on there,
Oh boy, here, let me grab
I have mine pulled up, but my top artists, my top 3, we'll do top 5, keep it round. This will not be surprising if you listen to Vinyl Verdict in the last 6 months, but my number 1 was Frank Ocean. My number 2, Kings of Convenience. Number 3, Lucy Rose. Number 4, Peach Pit. And number 5, Father John Misty. My God, that's like, I would say 4 of those would be like my top 5 albums of all time. I Love You, Peach Pit. Being So Normal probably would not be in my top 10 greatest albums of all time. But the other 4, absolutely. Blonde, Peace or Love, This Ain't the Way You Go Out, and I Love You, Honey Bear were also in my top albums of the year, and they will be in my top albums of all time for sure. What about you guys? What are your top artists? Do you have them up?
I thought I had a screenshot of it on here. Just give me a second.
Well, let's save you some time. My top albums, my top 5 are those albums I just listed, just in a different order with Peace or Love. And This Ain't the Way You Go Out by Lucy Rose being tied in number of minutes I listened to this year at 915 minutes for both albums, which is crazy. How do you like to be the same down to the minute is crazy.
Wow.
I also found very funny my top song of the year. If you've been listening this season, we meme about Tommy's Party. Like, this album would have been better if it had Tommy's Party. My number 1 song this year was Tommy's Party by Peach Pit. God, I love that song.
I can no longer access my Spotify Wrapped. One moment, please.
It turns out we're just talking about my Wrapped.
I have it from 2 different sources because I'm gonna just look through my last year on Last FM because I disagree. Last FM will take from a few more sources than YouTube Music does. For me, what do we start with? My top artist of the year was Charlie XCX. Mm-hmm. My top 5 songs, 4 of them were from Charlie XCX, at least if we go on YouTube Music. If we go on Last FM, in my top songs of the year, we have Point of Departure by Death Pact.
Oh, I love
Guess by Charlie XCX.
Great song.
It's That Time by Marlon Hofstad, and it's the Dimension remix. Von Dutch by Charlie XCX. Connect by Vampire Weekend are my top 5. My top albums of the year are Brat, and it's the same, but it's 3 more songs, so it's not. So the deluxe edition. Only God Was Above Us by Vampire Weekend. No Hands by Joey Valence and Bray. Destiny by DJ Sabrina the Teenage DJ. And Asia by Steely Dan.
Wow, that makes sense.
Yeah, and my top artist was Steely Dan. That's the 3rd year in a row.
Steely Dan.
They have been my top artist. I listened to 17 hours of Steely Dan this year.
Yeah, Frank has been my number 1 or number 2 for the last like 5 years probably, which is crazy.
When they're good, they're good.
Yeah, honestly, it's like, why would I listen to Not Blonde?
Yeah, it's funny. The DJ Sabrina, the Teenage DJ one, I felt like I was like, how is that my top album of the year? Because I feel like I've only listened to it twice. And then I remembered that Destiny is like 50 tracks long. It's like a 4 or 5 hour long album, and I've listened through it in its entirety twice, and that was enough to have
give it a ton of plays.
100 plays.
All right. I can't access it anymore. It doesn't exist. But it said that my number 1 album was Empire of the Suns, whatever it was that has Walking on a Dream on it.
Fire.
Okay, so my Spotify Wrapped was incredibly broken because all it told me was that the albums that we listened to that were the longest were my number 1 artists.
You gotta listen to more music, my friend.
Which is weird because I have like a bunch of playlists that I just listen to all the time, but obviously not as much. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look on Last FM, which tells me what I've listened to all year properly, and it tells me that my number 1 song was My Own Worst Enemy by Lit, which is a good song.
Please tell me.
Yeah, and then for some reason, Cake is way up there too. I
covered them last season.
Yeah, we called them covered them last season. I wasn't very fair to that song. It turns out I actually liked that group. Turns out I actually really like that album. So, I think we talked about that in the Wrapped for last season. That I didn't rate that one high enough, and I probably should have rated it higher. But
which is funny because that was like Plouf's last pick before we did the reorganizing our list, and like already we're like, yeah, I got it wrong.
Yeah, it was wild. For the last 365 days, I listened to My Own Worst Enemy and Bad Habit by The Offspring the most, and then followed up with Walking on a Dream. Apparently, I listened to that 11 times. So
11 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any. I'm looking at my list to see if there's any that surprised me. One is that my 13th top album was Inside by Bo Burnham. I'm like, I can't get past it, man. That, first of all, it still holds up. But the deluxe version came out a little later. It's also got some banger songs. As well as that my number 9 song is One Last Breath by Creed. I unironically love this resurgence of Creed, and I've been listening to them a ton.
Wild.
Because I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking.
It's funny. It's like there was the yacht rock resurgence, and now there's the like
divorced dad rock.
Yeah,
the like garbage, the post grunge resurgence.
Okay, yeah, I don't like that you said garbage rock first, but
well, no, I mean garbage is part of the post grunge scene.
Word.
That was just a good save, actually. I was gonna say it's garbage, but
yeah,
I think it was the much maligned post grunge scene is more
divorced dad rock.
My top 5 albums smashed by The Offspring. Modern Sounds in Country and Western Music, Breakfast in America, Dark Side of the Moon, and Comfort Eagle by Cake. So there you go.
Nice. There's one that I wanted to shout out that was just bubbling below the surface, and that was Ilion's the album Ilion by Slift, which is a cool French progressive metal band.
Word.
Also, Joey Valence and Bray. That album, No Hands, a great, super fun album. We should talk about Joey Valence and Bray at some point.
Well, hey, leave a comment if you're on Spotify. Tell us what your top artist was, your top album, your top song, whatever. We'd love to hear it. Until then, we'll see you next week with our greatest hits with Blink-182, Patsy Cline, and
Engelbert Humperdinck.
That's it. Bye-bye.
Bye.